Starting off our list at number 10 is Apocalypse. If it wasn't for his goal of mutant domination and evolution, Apocalypse would vaporize the X-Men whenever he wanted to, and even if that wasn't how he did it, he has the capacity to wipe out the X-Men in a whole handful of ways. For starters, Apocalypse is what is called an external. These are mutants who are immortal, share a psychic connection, and who can revive themselves, so he can just never be permanently taken down, and he has been around for about 5,000 years. Apocalypse's original mutant ability was to be able to control his molecular structure, but over time, with the mentality of survival of the fittest, he has enhanced his abilities and even gained new ones through the use of celestial technology, celestial armor, and at least 2 different techno-organic viruses. He can do a lot with his molecular manipulation, including heal himself and turn his limbs into simple melee weapons, but also technologically complex weapons like plasma cannons. But I think the most impressive thing he can do is consciously and subconsciously grant himself a huge amount of powers at will. That makes him too much for the MCU already, and we haven't even talked about his celestial energy manipulation, his psionic abilities, or any of his countless horsemen of the apocalypse, all of whom were given power boosts by this unstoppable mutant. Coming in at number 9 is Thanos. Now before you come for me in the comments about how Thanos is literally already in the MCU, I want to point out the little fact that the version of Thanos from the MCU is like a schoolboy compared to the comic book version of Thanos. Thanos in the comics is an absolute monster. In the MCU, Thanos is fueled by an altruistic motive to help the universe. In the comics, he straight up enjoys taking people's lives. Thanos is essentially an omnicidal maniac. He's extremely prideful, violent, deceptive, malevolent, treacherous, and ruthless to the point that he doesn't care about sacrificing innumerable planets and civilizations, even his own race, in order to praise his love, Mistress Death, and gain her affection. Thanos also possesses an insatiable hunger for power, always seeking to obtain objects of incalculable might and influence, such as the cosmic cubes or the infinity gems. He does all that while speaking in a super sophisticated, calm, and collected demeanor, which they did get right in the MCU, I'll give them that. Not only that, but being a massive hulking Eternal with a deviant gene, Thanos is one of the most powerful of the Eternals of Titan, with an innate ability to synthesize cosmic energy, allowing for energy and matter manipulation. Thanos in the MCU is no pushover, sure, but comic book Thanos, he puts him to shame. Number 8, Zom. We have seen the character of Dormammu in the MCU. He was an insanely powerful mystical entity who Doctor Strange had to basically lose to 1,000,000 times and trick to defeat. Well, it took all of comic book Dormammu's power plus the help of the cosmic being Eternity just to restrain the extra-dimensional monster known as Zom, with the magical links of living bondage and the crown of blindness. And with these tools, these massively powerful beings only managed to trap Zom in an amphora, in a world beyond all worlds, in a time beyond all time. Well, when Umar, the sister of Dormammu, invaded Earth and Doctor Strange could not defeat her, he needed some way to put her down. The Ancient One told Doctor Strange about Zom, and Doctor Strange decided that he was going to unleash the monster to easily defeat Umar. Now, I don't know why the Ancient One thought this would be a good idea, because now, being free and not wanting to go back, Zom turned on Doctor Strange. Zom is so powerful that there was absolutely nothing that Doctor Strange could even do. Even if all the reality warping heroes and all the Avengers combined forces, they would not be able to defeat Zom. It took the power of the living tribunal, the representative of the One Above All and the judge of the multiverse, who had not even been seen in Marvel Comics before this point, to just whisk him away. The tribunal then scolded Doctor Strange for summoning a being who could literally wipe out the multiverse. Zom has no other goal than to completely annihilate and destroy everything. Ever. Now, Strange has since channeled Zom in extremely dire situations, and that's the only time I could really imagine the MCU even mentioning his name.
At number 7 is Exodus. Bennett du Paris was born in the 12th century, having always felt isolated from his peers, probably because he was about to become one of the most powerful mutants the world will ever see. His journey from a lost crusader in the Palestine to becoming one of Apocalypse's pawns and eventually a zealous follower of Magneto paints a tale of ever-evolving power dynamics. dynamics. But what sets Exodus apart from the legion of comic book villains is his astounding psychic abilities. He ranks among Earth's most formidable psychics, wielding an arsenal of telekinetic and telepathic powers. Now, while the origin of his additional abilities remains shrouded in mystery, those being teleportation and energy blasts, it's clear that his immense telekinetic and telepathic prowess fuels them somehow. One of his most astonishing feats involved encapsulating all of Genosha within a psionic dome. This dome not only imprisoned heroes and cut off communication from the outside, but he could also manipulate the dome's size, shrinking it to crush entire buildings. But what's even more impressive was the fact that he was able to maintain the dome's integrity while also psionically influencing the island's populace, keeping powerful telepaths like Jean Grey and the rest under his control, while also battling legions of superheroes at the same time. Although this display of absolute power is probably an outlier, it highlights Exodus's sheer power and potential, making him a formidable antagonist lurking far beyond Omega-level capabilities.
Number 6. Magneto. Magneto boasts a storied history in the Marvel Universe, largely characterized by his antagonistic role as the foremost rival of Professor Charles Xavier. What makes his perspective particularly intriguing is the juxtaposition of his past as a child of a Jewish family during World War II and his subsequent belief in mutant supremacy over regular humans, even after enduring years of persecution. This worldview has driven him to lead the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants and various other factions in opposition to the X-Men and Earth's other heroes. Magneto's reputation as a formidable force precedes him. His unparalleled power and extensive experience position him as an adversary few dare to challenge. Remarkably, to prove his power, there was a moment when he had his heart torn out by the villain Uranos. Yet, he somehow defied death by using his powers to maintain the circulation of his own body. This incident kind of proves the sheer magnitude of his abilities and his enduring legacy in the Marvel Universe.
At number 5 is Proteus. Proteus is the lunatic son of Moria McTaggart, wielding a reality warping power that exceeds the boundaries of comprehension. His ability to manipulate the fabric of existence is a cosmic anomaly, but it comes at a grave cost. See, Proteus is forced to leap from one fragile vessel to another, for his extraordinary energy consumption quickly decays living flesh. But it's a two-sided coin, because as a psychokinetic being, Proteus may be temporarily defeated, but his essence endures, an ethereal psychokinetic specter lurking in the shadows. Operating on the principle of sight and concentration, Proteus reshapes reality itself, albeit momentarily. So, for example, he may transform a building into a swarm of bees, but the moment his focus wavers, say to warp some other aspect of reality, like when he turns Cyclops' laser beams into popcorn, the bees revert back to their original form, the building. Yet make no mistake, this mutant stands atop the Omega level hierarchy. He once vanquished Jean Grey, even while she wielded the formidable Phoenix Force.
Number 4. Matthew Malloy. Matthew Malloy is a sad character. Coming from Earth 14923, his mutant abilities manifested thanks to an extremely traumatic event involving his wife and some Skrulls, and they quickly went out of his control. He essentially has the ability to tap into an extra-dimensional power source that allows him to warp reality to his will. With that power, he's displayed telekinesis, telepathy, catatonic explosions, matter manipulation, teleportation, and even self-resurrection. As his powers manifested, an eruption of energy followed, destroying everything around him, which only made things worse for him. After that incident, Matthew stood in a massive sinkhole he created when he was then approached by a robotic drone with a holographic image of director Maria Hill, who questioned him if he was responsible for the disaster and if he was a mutant. He was not in a good emotional state and was pretty uncontrollable, and so she sent a strike team to his location only for him to uncontrollably release his power and obliterate everyone in the area again. After this, S.H.I.E.L.D. sent an airstrike that obliterated him and the X-Men, Cyclops, and Magic, but using his powers, he returned back to life and teleported to the Jean Grey school, where he took the life of Emma Frost. It was not until Tempest used her powers to go back in time and, with the help of Professor X of the past, managed to make Malloy's parents never meet, causing him to never have been born in the first place and cease to exist in the present, saving Cyclops, Magic, and Emma Frost.
At number 3 is Mad Jim Jaspers. Sir James Sir James Jaspers was the head of the Conservative Party in Britain and ran an anti-superhuman platform, and after winning the election in a landslide, Jaspers served as the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom before it was revealed that he himself was a mutant, and one with vast reality warping powers at that. Going mad with power, Jaspers came into conflict with Captain Britain and Fury, who managed to defeat him by shunting him off to a completely barren universe in which there was no matter or energy for him to control. But this wasn't really a big deal for Jimmy because after all of causality is thrown into chaos, he comes back to life. Not only that, but Jasper claims that he's solely responsible for the creation of everything in his universe, including living beings. So to say that this guy is beyond Omega level is an understatement. He's more like a deity than anything else.
And at number 2 today is Strife. Strife's origin is a complex tale involving cloning, Mother Ascani, and the influence of the infamous Apocalypse. He's essentially a clone of Nathan Summers, who's better known as Cable. However, what sets Strife apart is that he represents what Cable might have become if not for the constant battle against the techno-organic virus that plagues him. Unlike Cable, Strife doesn't face this limitation. Much like his counterpart, Strife is classified as an Omega level telekinetic, and he confidently lays claim to that title. In fact, he's considered the third most powerful of his kind on Earth. His telepathic powers rival that of other top-tier telepaths, boasting both potent defensive and offensive telekinetic abilities. To add to his arsenal, he's been cybernetically enhanced by Apocalypse, granting him superhuman physical attributes. Strife is an imposing and relentless villain, a force that should just never be underestimated.
And coming in at number 1 is Scarlet Witch. Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch, is a marvel of Marvel. She started off as a villain with the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, but soon switched sides to become one of the Avengers' most iconic members. Her power is all about bending probability and reality. Originally thought to be her mutant power, it's actually innately magical thanks to her lineage and the High Evolutionaries meddling. Alongside her twin brother Quicksilver, Wanda's powers initially manifested as hex bolts, volatile bolts of chaotic energy that alter the very fabric of probability. Initially, Wanda didn't have full control over the power and could accidentally hex objects with hand gestures like a magical Italian. Oh. She eventually gains more control through practice, but her abilities aren't just limited to hex bolts. She's a bona fide witch wielding chaos magic. With training from Agatha Harkness, she can control elements and organic matter. This means that she can manipulate not just probability, but the very fabric of existence. When we talk about villains with beyond Omega level powers, Wanda Maximoff is right up there. Her ability to reshape reality and command chaos makes her a cosmic force to be reckoned with.
Number 10, Circe. Circe was a woman in ancient Greece whose beauty was apparently unparalleled. She married a wealthy prince, but he was a brutish, cruel drunk who she viewed as an animal, so she killed him before eventually coming into contact with the goddess of witchcraft, Hecate, who granted her 1/5 of her soul, which made her a master of magic capable of imposing her will and power on others. After Circe sold her soul, she became obsessed with regaining it from the dimension of hell where it had been sent. She is willing to do anything and sacrifice anyone to try and regain what she has lost. She is known for turning men into animals that serve as her minions and has magic powers which allow her to open portals and teleport or give life to inanimate objects. She has geokinesis, the ability to possess people, as well as the ability to freeze time to pull herself and others out of a moment. She is a constant thorn in Wonder Woman's side and a constant source of chaos in the DC universe. Number 9. Black Adam. Teth Adam was a member of the Kandaki tribe in ancient Egypt, whose people were forced into servitude by a cruel pharaoh of the time. Most of his family was killed, but Teth Adam was able to escape with his nephew Amun when the wizard Shazam brought them to the Rock of Eternity to make Amun his chosen champion. Amun learned that he could share his powers with Adam, and the two returned to free their people. Amun wanted to find a peaceful solution, but Adam felt that peace was not an option and wanted revenge, so he killed his nephew in order to gain his power for his own. In the present day of the DC universe, he is the ruler of Kandak, and sometimes a member of super teams like the Justice Society. He flip-flops between being an anti-hero and a straight-up villain, but the fact that he once started World War III and murdered millions of innocent civilians makes me more than comfortable putting him on a villain's list. His enchantment from the wizard Shazam has granted him the strength of Shu, the speed of Horus, the strength of Amun, the wisdom of Zehudi, the power of Aten, and the the Courage of Mehen. This gives him super strength, speed, flight, and lightning casting abilities, which makes him capable of taking out most of the heroes of the DC universe with ease. The only people who seem to be able to consistently stop him are Shazam, who has pretty much the same powers, and of course, Superman. Number 8. The Reverse Flash. There is some variation on the origins of the Reverse Flash depending on the continuity you are looking at, but usually he is a man from the 25th century called Eobard Thawne, who develops a fascination with the Flash. He works for years on studying the Speed Force until he eventually manages to replicate the accident that gave Barry Allen his superpowers and tries to become a hero himself. Because his time period doesn't have much need for heroes, he causes incidents that he can then solve himself. He eventually became friends with the Flash, but once Flash became aware of his true nature, he turned Thawne away and he became the Reverse Flash. Reverse Flash wants to gain his friend's respect and become an integral part of his history, so he traveled through time to mess with Barry's life, doing rather minor things like tripping him on the stairs when he was a kid and going to such extremes as killing his mother in front of him as a child. Reverse Flash's ability to manipulate the timeline makes him almost unstoppable, as if someone gets in his way, he simply travels through time and erases them from existence, as he did to his own brother, Roburn. Due to him being so weaved throughout history, Barry can't even stop him without risking creating an alternate timeline, as when he prevented Reverse Flash from killing Nora Allen and accidentally created the dystopian Flashpoint timeline. Even when Barry does manage to kill Thawne, because he is so connected to the negative Speed Force, he is always brought back before long.
At number 7 is Thanos. When we talk about Avengers villains who are a tough nut to crack, Thanos inevitably leaps into the picture. I mean, we're not just dealing with your everyday antagonist here, we're talking about the Mad Titan himself. Thanos is like the ultimate cosmic conundrum, most notably wielding the Infinity Gauntlet and its mind-bending gems. With that kind of power, he can reshape reality, control time, and alter the very fabric of existence. The Avengers had their hands filled dealing with this purple-skinned powerhouse. Remember that snap? The one that wiped out like, I don't know, half of all life in the universe? Yeah, that was this guy. So taking on Thanos is like confronting the embodiment of unstoppable force. When he's on the scene, you can bet that things are gonna get cosmically complicated. At number 6 is Dr. Doom. Peering into the vast realm of the Avengers villains, one figure emerges with an aura of unyielding power, Dr. Doom. Hailing from the enigmatic land of Latveria, Dr. Doom is a multifaceted antagonist whose mastery in both science and sorcery is unparalleled. Clad in signature metal armor, Doom's intellect fuels his pursuits of dominion, rendering him a formidable adversary. His indomitable will, fortified by tragic origins, propels him in his quest for ultimate control. From reshaping reality to the Infinity Gauntlet to manipulating time itself, Doom's ambitions knows no bounds. A complex amalgamation of genius, magic, and ambition, Dr. Doom stands as the enduring testament to the unexplored depths of villainy within the Avengers universe. At number 5 is Galactus. Galactus is a colossal cosmic entity in the Marvel universe, emerging as the embodiment of cosmic balance. This being, beyond the constraints of good or evil as we perceive them, stands as a force of nature, a devourer of worlds. Dressed in his signature colossal purple and blue armor, he's a figure that transcends conventional hero-villain narratives. Galactus doesn't scheme like Loki or seek power like Thanos, he merely exists to sustain his own existence by consuming planets. With an insatiable hunger, he wields the power cosmic, allowing control over reality itself. The Avengers, despite their tenacity, often find themselves helpless against this force. They face cosmic threats, but Galactus remains unparalleled. His very existence challenges our anthropocentric perspective, underscoring the universe's grandiosity and our limited understanding within it. At number 4 is Molecule Man. Owen Reese, a character who truly bends your mind quite literally. Imagine having the power to control, well, molecules. Everything around us, matter itself, is made up of these tiny things, and Molecules Man's ability allows him to reshape reality on a fundamental level. He can disintegrate, reshape, or recreate matter with just a thought. But here's the kicker, his power isn't just limited to objects. He can alter time itself, space, I didn't know those were made of molecules, and even other superpowers. Now you might be thinking, how on earth could anyone stop someone who could manipulate reality at its core? Well, it's a mind-boggling concept and definitely one that the Avengers are gonna have to figure out a way around. At number 3 is Red Skull. This formidable antagonist possesses an indomitable will that echoes throughout history. Initially locking horns with Captain America during the Second War of the World, Red Skull's obsession with power and ominous association with Hydra paint a portrait of unwavering unwavering malevolence. But what makes Red Skull truly intriguing is his resilience. Over the years, he's demonstrated an uncanny ability to rebound from apparent defeat, like a persistent specter haunting the Marvel Universe. His consciousness survived, transcending mortality, finding new vessels to embody his wickedness. From Johann Schmidt to various successors, the essence of Red Skull endures, emphasizing the notion that some adversaries are simply impervious to the confines of time and defeat. At number 2 is Magneto. With the ability to manipulate electromagnetic fields, his power transcends the conventional. But it's not just his raw might that sets him apart, it's his motivation. Crafted through tragic experiences, Magneto's actions are propelled by a deep-seated desire to protect mutant kind from the looming shadow of human oppression. His conviction blurs the line between villainy and an almost understandable quest for survival. So can Magneto truly be stopped? It's a paradoxical question, for while his actions are perceived as antagonistic, they stem from a place of harrowing resonance. Perhaps understanding his origin is the key to predicting his next move, and in a realm where right and wrong often collide, Magneto's indomitable spirit continues to both confound and compel. And at number 1 is Morgan Le Fay. Hailing from Arthurian legends and weaving her way into Marvel Comics, she's a force to be reckoned with. What sets her apart? It's not just her mastery over ancient magic, but her time-traveling escapades that truly bend the mind. Imagine a villain who's been a thorn in the Avengers' side across centuries. With a knack for manipulating reality, controlling minds, and wielding dark spells, Morgan Le Fay is a puzzle the team can't quite solve. But what's truly baffling is her immortality. How does one truly stop someone who's danced through time, cheating its very flow? And as the Avengers continue to battle this enigmatic enchantress, it's a reminder that some foes are beyond the grasp of conventional heroics, slipping through time's fingers like sand.
Number 10. Dr. Doom. Some of you are already typing your comments claiming that Victor Von Doom is not a villain and is instead an anti-hero. I would disagree, saying that he's at best an anti-villain, but honestly, if I didn't include him, I'd be getting just as many comments complaining about his exclusion, so let's put him at the bottom and agree that Dr. Doom started out as a villain and has become more nuanced and difficult to peg down in the years since. Victor Von Doom was the child of Romani people living in Latveria. His mother was a sorceress, and after her and his father's passing, Victor began to study her books, teaching himself the dark arts. He also developed a keen scientific mind, which made him a legendary scientist and inventor at a very young age, and led to him being tracked down by the US military and offered further education in the States. It was here that he met Reed Richards, with whom he developed a lifelong rivalry. While still in school, he developed his infamous Doom bots and also built a functional time machine. He was disfigured in an accident that resulted in his expulsion, and he went on to become the leader of some monks who helped him build his iconic armor. He became the main antagonist of the Fantastic Four and the dictator of the country of Latveria, causing lots of problems for the heroes of the Marvel Universe. His status as one of the most brilliant minds on Earth, as well as him being one of the Earth's most powerful sorcerers, combined with his diplomatic immunity, makes him a force to be reckoned with for both the heroes and the villains of the Marvel Universe.
And at number 9 is Sabretooth. Sabretooth is like the darker, bigger, and stronger brother of Wolverine. He isn't actually Wolverine's brother, but the fights between Wolverine and Sabretooth were the absolute most bloody, knockdown, drag-out, legendary fights that go to such drastic extremes, and that's because neither of these guys can really be stopped, since they both possess an absolutely massive, powerful healing factor. They share a lot of qualities, honestly. Sabretooth has adamantium-laced bones and claws, superhuman senses, superhuman attributes, and even psionic resistances as well. The thing about Sabretooth is that he is just pure animalistic fury, a mindless killing machine, but one who has the training to make him just that much more of a force to be reckoned with. Even when he is stopped, he's almost never fully destroyed because of that damn healing factor that makes him next to impossible to bring down. Sure, he doesn't warp reality or cross-dimensional barriers, but even when he was thrown into the pit on Krakoa, where he was trapped alive but unable to move, he still proved a problem as he figured out how to escape.
Magneto. When Mac Eisenhart was a young man in Germany, he was subjected to many atrocities at the hands of the Third Reich, who sent him to Auschwitz for no reason other than being Jewish. He eventually escaped and became known as Erich Lenscher. He discovered that he had the ability to control the powers of magnetism, and after the war, used them to track down former German soldiers. He developed the belief that mutants and humanity could not coexist and became Magneto, a mutant dedicated to mutant superiority and the leader leader of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. He fought the X-Men several times over the years, but they eventually came to an uneasy truce, working together to form a refuge for their kind on the island of Krakoa, which is good for everyone as Magneto is a very difficult villain to stop and has stood up to the entire Avengers team. Once reversed the Earth's magnetic poles and also created a global EMP, which took out the world's technology, showing that he could plunge us back to the Dark Ages whenever he wants.
Number 7. The Void. Bob Reynolds was granted the power of 1,000,000 exploding suns after consuming the Golden Century Serum, which was a much more potent offshoot of the original Super Soldier Serum. He has photokinetic-based powers fueled by the sun itself that include molecular manipulation, immortality, insane super strength, speed, invulnerability, stamina, agility, reflexes, and senses, flight, teleportation, energy absorption and blasts, psionic abilities, and even reality warping abilities within a small area. He used his powers for the greater good of all, and he was the example of what a hero should be. He had connections to Iron Man, was active during the years just prior to the Fantastic Four's emergence. He became a role model for Spider-Man as well as an ally to the X-Men, and equal to Reed Richards and a friend to the Hulk. The thing about the Sentry is that he's accompanied by a dark persona called the Void. The Void has all the same abilities plus seemingly even more. The Void went on a rampage that took the lives of around 1,000,000 people and almost destroyed Manhattan. Full rosters of the Avengers, X-Men, and the Fantastic Four all went to take on the Void, and they couldn't do a thing. Only the Sentry himself could really subdue the Void, and it wasn't even permanent. Now later on, in the Siege event, Norman Osborn used the Sentry to attack Asgard, but this accidentally unleashed the Void, and it totally obliterated Asgard completely, taking out Loki in the process. Now this did actually branch off into a what-if story where the Void was never stopped and destroyed every superhero on Earth, and then went off to destroy the universe. The Sentry is basically a god, and the Void is this god's devil. They may be adding the Sentry to the MCU soon, but I seriously doubt they will make this character or his opposite as powerful as they are in the comics. Number 6. Null. Null is the literal eldritch god of all symbiotes. He's their creator. Null existed before the current version of the universe ever even came to be, in the black void of nothingness. One of his very first acts after he was awoken by the light created by the foundation of the universe was creating the all-black Necrosword. This was the very first symbiote, and it was immensely powerful. Using it, Null was able to slice the head clean off of a Celestial. For this insane feat of power, he was banished to a void where he worked more and more on the sword, and eventually he broke free and went out into the universe with the intent of wiping out various gods until he was defeated and he lost the sword to Gore the God Butcher. And if we want to talk about villains who should have been more powerful in the MCU, he is top of the list. Null then goes on to make more and more symbiotes who all share a hive mind under the control of Null. They eventually rebel and imprison Null inside the symbiote homeworld Clintar, but he is one of the strongest villains Marvel Comics has ever shown us. He faced off against all the Earth's heroes and nearly won. He has awoken, enslaved, and controlled Celestials, and even defeated the Sentry, ripping him in half and absorbing the Void. The only thing that defeated him was Eddie Brock's Venom wielding the Unit Power, aka Captain Universe, the protector of the universe, and the opposite to everything that Null represents. Number 5. Molecule Man. While attempting to fix an atomic-powered device, a 1,000,000,000,000 accident occurred, bombarding Owen Reese with radiation and transforming his body. Now, this man, Owen Reese, was the most powerful being in the entire multiverse. The accident also caused a minuscule hole between Earth's dimension and another, allowing the being who would eventually become known as the Beyonder to become aware of a universe teeming with life, which would lead to the events of the first and eventually second Secret Wars. Now, Uatu the Watcher, who used to never become involved in the events of Earth, sensed the Molecule Man and the danger that he posed. He contacted the Fantastic Four, warned them of the threat, transported them to face him, and the Fantastic Four couldn't do a damn thing to the Molecule Man, until Mr. Fantastic was able to deduce that the Molecule Man could not alter the molecules of living things. But that wasn't even a real limitation of the Molecule Man. That was just a subconscious limitation that the Molecule Man put on himself. The kicker is that, in reality, Reese's accident was caused by the Beyonders themselves. They created the Molecule Man as a singularity in every reality to basically use the villain as a device that would destroy its universe. The purpose of their experiment was to eventually destroy all the Molecule Men at the same time just to see what would happen, which was a key part of the latest Secret Wars event. But Molecule Man, being used used by Dr. Doom and eventually Reed Richards, was able to rebirth the entire cosmos. Could it work in the MCU? Sure, it could, but the character would just be a plot device. I doubt they would actually use him as an actual villain. Number 4, Abraxas. Abraxas is the polar opposite of the cosmic entity, Eternity. This means his whole reason for existing is to destroy all of the multiverse, which, I'll be honest, there are a few different characters in Marvel Comics who exist for that reason, and funnily enough, a bunch of them are on this list. But Abraxas is also tied to the incredibly unstoppable cosmic entity, Galactus. Whenever Galactus would consume a planet, it would keep Abraxas in check. So, when Galactus was destroyed in a story called Galactus the Devourer, Abraxas was released and begins his path of ultimate destruction. As a cosmic entity, Abraxas' powers are essentially limitless, and his whole existence is kind of important to the universe, which means he can't really be taken out like a normal villain can. So the question of how he was defeated is kind of important. In Fantastic Four number 48 to number 50, we learned of an incredibly powerful weapon called the Ultimate Nullifier. It was used back then to threaten Galactus and stop him from destroying the Earth. Reed Richards ended up using the Ultimate Nullifier to essentially rewrite reality, remaking it so that Abraxas just never existed. Abraxas is so unstoppable that we essentially needed a Deus Ex Machina just to defeat him. I think that if he was in the MCU, that's probably the only way they could make the story work, but I think it would basically break the whole MCU for them to do it. Number 3, Mad Jim Jaspers. When Captain Britain is sent to Earth 238 in Marvel Superheroes UK number 377 in August of 1981, we are introduced to a guy named Mad Jim Jaspers, who is the Prime Minister of England in this reality. Jim has created a cyborg called the Fury that can adapt to anything like a Sentinel can to destroy all the superpowered beings on this Earth. But that's not Jim's power. We are being delivered this information from the inside of a teapot helicopter that is immensely bigger on the inside than it looks on the outside, with the room growing and characters appearing that are already passed away or that resemble Alice in the Wonderland characters. That's because Mad Jim Jaspers is a mutant with an insane level of reality warping powers. The thing is, this character is not fully in control of his abilities. Now eventually we are introduced to an Earth 616 reality Mad Jim Jaspers who is way more powerful than his 238 counterpart. When Captain Britain pays him a visit, Jim uses his powers to make Captain Britain believe that he was dreaming and that he has woken up out of a coma. He then gets frustrated and wipes this entire reality clean to start everything fresh. Now I don't know what the likelihood of getting Captain Britain into the MCU is, with the multiverse becoming more prominent, it's more likely, but this insanely powerful reality warper is not someone who I expect will ever make an appearance anytime soon. Number 2, the Chaos King. Amatsu Mikubashi first appeared in Thor Blood Oath number 6 in 2006, and he is the Japanese god of chaos, evil, and an aspect of the cosmic being Oblivion. Mikubashi ruled and thrived over the Earth when it was nothing more than a formless void of primordial darkness, and as such, his goal now is to bring about a new age of chaos and void and darkness. He is a primordial being who was imprisoned in Yomi, the Shinto underworld, where he remained for centuries accruing an army of Oni, Shinma demons, and other monsters. Now during the events of Ares God of War, Chaos King attacks Olympus after he had defeated and controlled the Japanese pantheon, meaning he had already done that and then he goes on to attack Olympus. And that was all after the fall of Asgard during Ragnarok. This is what kickstarts his mission in Chaos War, where he slays the Egyptian gods, the Celtic gods, Shi'ar gods, and the gods of Zen law. He takes out Nightmare in the Dream Dimension, destroys Mephisto, and casts Mistress Death out of hell, making her literally run away, and releases the souls of the damned. He has the power to defeat Eternity and is practically unfazed by attacks from the likes of Zeus. God Hercules, Galactus, Silver Surfer, and Thor together could not defeat Chaos King. To win, this insanely powerful god of gods Hercules had to punch the Chaos King into a portal to an endless void of nothingness, and this was after he had already destroyed 98.76% of the universe. They wouldn't let Gore the God Butcher be as big of a threat to the gods in the MCU as he is in the comics. The Chaos King wipes out 90% of the universe. I just don't see it happening in the MCU at this time. It's just not gonna happen. And finally, in at number 1, the one below all. In Marvel Comics, there is a character called the One Above All, who hasn't really been seen all too often, but is essentially the equivalent to God, or the creator. Now we have gods like Odin and Zeus and Thor in Marvel Comics and the MCU, but this is kinda different. The One Above All is like the god of everything, the supreme ruler of creation and compassion. It's even been represented as the writers of Marvel Comics at one point, just to give you an idea. So the one below all, as you can imagine, is the antithesis to this, the personification of destruction and hate. Another way of looking at it is that the one below all is the one above all's Hulk form, although that kind of makes things a little bit more complex. The one below all is trapped in the below place and manifests in realities through gamma and gamma mutates. Basically, this means that the Hulk and other gamma mutated beings have fractions of the one below all's power and can be taken over by the one below all for him to try and escape and destroy everything. In an alternate future, it actually does this, taking over Bruce Banner's body and using his power to devour the cosmic entity Eternity and eradicate all life in not only this version of the cosmos, but even going into the next iteration of the universe, ensuring that nothing in that universe will continue to be. Luckily, this is prevented in the Immortal Hulk story, but I'm telling you, go read that story. The one above all and the one below all seem like beings that are just too conceptual that I don't know if they'd be making it into Marvel's cinematic universe. But the other part of this is that the Immortal Hulk storyline that features the one below all is way too graphic for it to be adapted to the MCU and Disney's brand. Coming in at number 10 is Kang the Conqueror. Kang is a little bit of an interesting pick for this list, as he totally can be stopped and has been multiple times. Thanks to the advanced time period he comes from though, Nathaniel Richards has an increased lifespan, making him look 40 when he's actually 7 years old. That's fine, that doesn't make him unstoppable. What makes him unstoppable is a couple of things. For starters, as most people know, Kang has a huge relationship with time. A version of this guy exists at almost all moments of the time stream, and not just one version of him, as there have been Kangs from different universes that have shown up as well. So not only can Nathaniel Richards show up at any point in the time stream in any of his numerous identities that all have their own long history, but his alternate universe versions are almost always set to make an appearance in his place. And then, on top of that, until recently, Nathaniel had the ability to transfer his consciousness to another body when he passed away. Nathaniel, Ramatut, Iron Lad, Kid Immortus, Scarlet Centurion, Immortus himself, Mr. Griffin, He Who Remains, whatever you want to call him, Kang the Conqueror is pretty much unstoppable. Number 9. Galactus. The being formerly known as Galen of the planet Ta lived before the modern cosmos in the previous cosmos. Galen gestated with the sentience of the universe for billions of years, transforming into the devourer of worlds, finding sustenance by ingesting entire planets, preferably those with living sentient beings that have much more energy for him to harness. Now when Galactus destroys and consumes a planet, he is sort of bringing balance to the universe, kind of like how life is given and taken away every day on Earth, which makes him an essential part of the universe. He's known for the destruction of the Skrull Empire and has attempted to devour the Earth so many freaking times. And I guess other planets for that matter too, or whatever. Galactus is also famous for his heralds such as Silver Surfer and the Cosmic Ghost Rider, and so many others. And while they are all powerful beings themselves, usually even before they gain the herald power boost, they don't hold a candle to Galactus himself. His only caveat is that Galactus's power depends on his planet's consumption. So a weakened Galactus has been taken out before, but if he eats like 4 or more planets or something, he's been able to defeat multiple mad celestials all by himself. He's powered by food, and I think pretty much all of us can understand that. Coming in at number 8, Abraxas. Abraxas is the polar opposite of the cosmic entity Eternity. So, being the opposite of Eternity, his whole reason for existing is to destroy all of the multiverse, which, I'll be honest, there are a few different characters in Marvel who exist for that reason, and funnily enough, a bunch of them are on this list. Abraxas is tied to Galactus too, because when Galactus would consume a planet, it would keep Abraxas in check. So, when Galactus is taken off the board in Galactus the Devourer, Abraxas is released and begins his path of ultimate destruction. As a cosmic entity, Abraxas' powers are essentially limitless, and his whole existence is kind of important to the universe, which means he can't really be taken out like a normal villain. So, how the heck do the heroes come out on top against this guy? Well, in Fantastic Four number 48 to 50, we learned of an incredibly powerful weapon called the Ultimate Nullifier. It was used back then to threaten Galactus and stop him from destroying our Earth. Now the heroes, specifically Reed Richards, ended up using the ultimate nullifier to essentially rewrite reality, destroying reality and remaking it so that Abraxas just never existed. That's the route we had to go to here. Kinda makes you wonder why Marvel would even write such a powerful villain in the first place, but if you're enjoying this list so far, well, we've got a ton more like it on our channel that you should definitely subscribe to. Or you could just give a thumbs up to this video, that's also helpful. Thanks.
Number 7. Doomsday. In the ancient Kryptonian days, a scientist wanted to create the ultimate life form. He accomplished this by sending a baby onto the planet's surface and waiting for either the elements or the creatures of the planet to, let's say, help the baby buy the farm. He would then take whatever remains were left and clone the baby to create a stronger clone, effectively forcing evolution to create the most brutal and effective creature possible. After decades of this process, Doomsday was born. Doomsday is nearly impossible to defeat, being essentially invulnerable and super strong. If you do manage to hurt him, he has a powerful healing factor that will almost immediately undo the damage. If you manage to kill him, he not only comes back to life, but will be evolved to resist damage from whatever hurt him before. He is an unstoppable force that only gets better at fighting you each time. When he first came to Earth, he was able to tear through the entire Justice League with them barely slowing him down, and the only person on Earth capable of standing up to him was Superman. Superman was eventually able to kill Doomsday, but it took him having to not hold back at all, and even then, the effort killed him in the process as well. Number 6. Parallax. Parallax is a parasitic demon entity that is the embodiment of fear. He spent years traveling the galaxy, causing civilizations to destroy themselves out of paranoia until the Guardians of the Universe trapped Parallax in the Green Lantern's central power battery on the planet Oa for billions of years. This yellow fear demon living in the battery is the reason that for years Green Lanterns were unable to affect anything that was the color yellow. Parallax influenced the mind of Hal Jordan, making him more and more anxious and self-doubting until he was driven mad by the destruction of his home, Coast City. In an effort to try and restore his home, Hal went on a rampage, killing the entire Green Lantern Corps and destroying the central power battery, allowing Parallax to graft onto Hal's soul, causing him to start going by the name Parallax and acting as a villain until he was eventually killed. The Spectre then freed Hal's spirit from the demon. Despite the fact that he can be trapped, Parallax is the embodiment of an emotional concept, fear, and is therefore unable to be killed. Beyond that, he is also able to manipulate reality, being able to create and destroy new planets at will. Number 5. Trigon. Trigon was a regular evil ruler of a planet, until one day a group of aliens known as the Divine showed up, hoping to use something called the Great Heart of Darkness to eat his soul and cleanse the planet of evil. This backfired as Trigon absorbed the heart and gained the power of 100 galaxies worth of collected evils. It was at this point that the Divine revealed that they were not a boy band as their name suggested, but were in fact his parents. This family reunion was cut short when Trigon skinned them and wore them like coats. He would go on to have many sons whose mothers he would kill, and one daughter, Raven. Raven would not end up going into the family business, but would instead end up joining the Teen Titans and becoming Trigon's greatest enemy. He has mind control powers, shape-shifting, dimensional travel, the ability to manipulate matter, and telepathy and telekinesis, just to name a few of his powers. He is immortal, having apparently been around since the dawn of time, and nearly invulnerable, having shrugged off blows from Wonder Girl and Superboy, with Superboy even saying that punching Trigon felt like trying to destroy a mountain with a teaspoon. Number 4. Darkseid. After the old gods died in a battle against evil, the planets New Genesis and Apocalypse were born. The latter fell under the control of an evil and tyrannical new god called Darkseid. New Genesis housed the source of all life, the life equation, and Darkseid became obsessed with finding its opposite force, the anti-life equation. He discovered that the anti-life equation was on the planet Earth and began a campaign to conquer the planet, bringing him into constant conflict with the members of the Justice League, particularly Superman. Superman. He is all but immortal, invulnerable, and super strong. As if that wasn't bad enough, he is also an incredible tactician with a keen scientific mind who has telepathic powers and the ability to shoot omega beams from his eyes, which he can use to either destroy or teleport his victims, such as when he sent Batman back to caveman times at the end of Final Crisis, essentially turning the Dark Knight into a temporal bomb. Even Superman has trouble going toe-to-toe with this god, whose only weakness is a substance called radium. Number 3. Mr. Mxyzptlk. Mr. Mxyzptlk is a fifth-dimensional being who has developed an obsession with Superman and likes to spend his time harassing the Man of Steel and putting him through various ordeals for his own amusement. He can fly, teleport, and create essentially anything he likes with just a thought. He is also a character with cosmic awareness, sometimes speaking directly to the reader as though he is aware of his place in a comic book. He is a relatively benign nuisance most of the time, merely wanting to put Superman through the ringer with his various cosmic pranks, but he is capable of extreme villainy when he wants to be, such as in Alan Moore's Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, where he grows bored and decides to become truly evil, manipulating events to kill several of Superman's friends and ruining his life in the process. Mixie is so powerful that even he thinks it's unfair. So, to be a good sport, he gave himself a weakness that makes it so that the only way to stop him is to trick Mr. Mxyzptlk into saying his name backwards, which is of course Kiltipsixum. When you consider that this is a self-imposed weakness, and in theory if he wanted to remove this rule he could at any time, it makes you realize just how unstoppable he really is. Number 2. The Anti-Monitor. When a scientist on the planet Oa developed a screen to witness the creation of the universe, this caused a massive explosion which split reality and formed the multiverse. The Oans began a civil war, and several of them left for the Quard dimension, seeking the means to become all-powerful. Quard was in the antimatter dimension, and one day an excess energy on Quard's moon formed into a being known as the Anti-Monitor, who fed off of the evil energy of the antimatter universe and took over his universe. He wanted to then destroy all the positive matter universes in order to become as powerful as possible, causing the Crisis on Infinite Earths, where he went to war with the various superheroes of the multiverse, which resulted in the multiverse being streamlined into one universe. Barely any of those sound like real words. He has destroyed and absorbed over 1,000 universes and is capable of being able to alter reality and increase the power levels of the villains who serve him. He is essentially immortal, being able to fight the strongest heroes from hundreds of universes at once without taking any apparent damage. It was only through the actions of the Spectre, who had been empowered by all of the various DC Universe's most powerful sorcerers, that the heroes were able to defeat him at the dawn of time. He was eventually killed by Superman 2, but was restored to life when the multiverse was recreated. Number 1. Necron. Necron's origins are shrouded in mystery, with rumors that he existed before life or was created by darkness itself to serve as its protector. Other stories say that he was imprisoned into the land of the unliving by the Guardians of the Universe near the beginning of time. For most of eternity he was unaware of life, but once he discovered its existence, he became obsessed with becoming its master. He fought against the Green Lantern several times with his army of the undead until he formed his own Lantern Corps by trapping the Anti-Monitor in his own central power battery. The Black Lanterns are comprised of dead superheroes as well as the entire population of the destroyed Coast City, who he has resurrected and forced to fight on his behalf. Even when his physical form is defeated, as he was never technically alive, he is simply sent back to the land of the unliving to begin plotting a new scheme to destroy life itself.
Number 10. Emperor Marco Ragnos. Marco Ragnos is a pretty spooky looking Sith Lord and Emperor. He battled Sith Lord Simus to become the new ruler of the Sith Empire, and take for himself the title of Dark Lord of the Sith. In his battle against Simus, he defeated him by separating his head from his body. Ragnos was a manipulative sort as Emperor and managed to hold on to his rule for hundreds of years by pitting his rivals against one another, thereby eliminating them as threats to his own rule. Even after his death, Ragnos' presence was felt, and he reappeared as a Force Ghost, informing those who fought over his position that only the most worthy would succeed him. Millennia later, an attempt was actually made to even resurrect Ragnos using energy pulled from the Force through various Force nexuses found throughout the galaxy, and this attempt actually almost succeeded. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, and if you think to yourself, man, I wish they did more Star Wars content, guess what? We have done some of that. You can go check out our Star Wars playlist for even more. Number 9. Savage Opress. Savage Opress is an interesting figure. He first appeared in Star Wars The Clone Wars. He is the younger brother of Darth Maul, who, like his brother, would also become a Sith Lord. However, he was also a Night Brother as well on his home world. As a Night Brother, he was chosen by Asajj Ventress to become her mate, pledging himself fully to her, and being bent by the Night Sister's magics to obey her. To prove his loyalty to her, he even murdered his own brother. Not Darth Maul, of course, but instead his brother Farrell. Eventually, Opress would escape Ventress's control, breaking the spell that the Night Sisters had cast over him, and breaking off from both Ventress and his master, Count Dooku. He would then go on to join up with Darth Maul, who eventually took him on as his own apprentice. Number 8. Darth Plagueis. Did you ever hear of the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise? I thought not. It's not a story the Jedi would tell you. Darth Plagueis was the Sith Master of Darth Sidious, who many of course know more commonly by his other name, Emperor Palpatine. Plagueis himself had an obsession that runs all the way back to actually the creation of the Sith, and in fact could be cited as kind of the reason for the initial split in the Force. He wanted to discover the secret to eternal life, and eventually developed somewhat of an ability to prevent death and create even life. However, this ability would not save him in the end, as his apprentice, Darth Sidious, would eventually betray him, killing him in his sleep so that he might become the new master, taking Plagueis' power for himself. Plagueis is first mentioned in the prequel film Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Here, Emperor Palpatine tells Anakin the legend of Plagueis as he attempts to kinda lure him to the dark side. Although right after that, Anakin's basically like, I think this guy's a Sith Lord. Here, Emperor Palpatine refers to his former master as Darth Plagueis the Wise. It was likely because of Plagueis' pursuit of knowledge in bioengineering that Palpatine himself was in a fashion able to prolong his own life. Although he too would obviously fail to become truly immortal, at least as far as we know. I hope that's where it stays. I hope he's gone. Oh my goodness. Could you imagine Emperor Palpatine just comes up again and we're like, oh my gosh, this guy.
Number 7. Apocalypse. The name of the game for Apocalypse, or En Sabanur, is survival of the fittest. His powers manifested back in ancient Egypt with the powers of immortality and the ability to alter the molecular structure of his own body. Now, we unfortunately have to talk about time travel here. I'm sorry. While Apocalypse has history with Kang the Conqueror as Rama Tut, the more important time traveler that Apocalypse deals with is Nathan Summers, aka Cable. In the future world of Cable, Apocalypse had conquered the world, so in order to stop that, Nathan went back to ancient Egypt to defeat Apocalypse. Now during that fight, the techno-organic arm of Cable bonded to Apocalypse, who used it to interact with a celestial spaceship and integrate all of its technology into himself, amplifying and enhancing his existing powers, allowing him to do pretty much anything. He can teleport, interface with any technology, grant himself almost any power like strength, flight, energy beams, telepathy, telekinesis, and all kinds of stuff. Obviously, it all depends on the story he's in. He's so incredibly OP that his powers wax and wane based on the story. Like in the X-Men animated TV show, he grew to like 1,000 feet tall and just used energy beams to completely vaporize the X-Men. And that could totally happen in the comics too at any point if it served the story. Usually he just sends out his horsemen to test the mutants though. The thing that makes him even more unstoppable is his ability to move his spiritual essence into new host bodies when his physical body is either worn out from his massive power or destroyed in a fight.
Number 6. Hela. Hela is the daughter of Loki, who was appointed by Odin to be the goddess of death. He would come to regret this choice, as Hela soon began several attempts to steal his and his son Thor's souls and to conquer Asgard for herself. In one of her most disturbing plots, she cursed Thor with immortal life, but a frail and decrepit body. She eventually reversed this and moved to Las Vegas, where she began to feed upon the souls of the unlucky. As the goddess of death, she can't really die, and is able to heal any injury with great speed, even being able to come back from disintegration. She has the power to kill immortal beings with a simple touch, making her a force to be reckoned with for Thor, let alone the normal human heroes he works with.
Number 5. The Fury. Many people may actually not know of the Fury, and there's a rather simple reason for that. The Fury came about in Marvel Superheroes UK, which is Marvel's attempt to branch out to British audiences and revamp Captain Britain. But it was also a way for Marvel to open up and explain explain the concept of the multiverse, and this all happened in the Crooked World story. This story deals with one of the most powerful reality-warping mutants ever, named Mad Jim Jaspers on Earth 238. But he's not even the focus of this point. Mad Jim Jaspers became the leading political leader in England, rallying the people against superheroes, and he created what was essentially a robot called the Fury, for the sole purpose of taking down superheroes, and my lord, the Fury is good at it. In the matter of 2 years, the Fury decimated every single superpowered being on Earth 238 except for Jim Jaspers. The Fury is similar to the Sentinels we see in the X-Men Days of Future Past movie, because this robot can analyze superhuman powers or any threat and modify its own defenses and capabilities to combat it. But it can also fire extremely potent energy blasts and even restore itself after being completely destroyed. The Fury ends up completely obliterating Captain Britain, causing him to be revived. And that was all a test for Captain Britain to face the much more powerful Mad Jim Jaspers from Earth 616. Now, the universe of Earth 238 gets destroyed, but the Fury adapts to even that and develops the ability to travel across dimensional barriers to continue its mission. The only thing going against this being is that he doesn't have a ton of appearances, so it's kind of hard to judge him against other beings.
Number 4. Thanos. Thanos was born on one of Saturn's moons, Titan, and had the deviant gene, which gave him thick purple skin as well as superior strength and heightened powers. He fell in love with a woman who turned out to be Death, and dedicated his life to impressing her by destroying as many living things as possible. Thanos has conquered countless worlds in his quest to impress Death, and is responsible for unleashing unspeakable horrors upon them. For instance, when he conquers a world, it is not uncommon for him to demand a tribute of the heads of everyone from the ages of 16 to 22. This insane demand is part of his plan to fulfill a request from Death to rid the universe of any of his offspring, and rather than put in the time to find out where and who his children are, he chooses to save time by implementing this method. As he is pretty much unstoppable for anyone but the most powerful superheroes, most planets are forced to go along with his insane demands. In his most iconic moment, he came up with a plan to acquire the Infinity Gems and wipe out half of all life in the universe in order to impress his love. Unlike many other evildoers who make these elaborate plans and then fail, Thanos actually pulled this off, getting all the gems and using the Infinity Gauntlet to enact his deadly romantic gesture.
Number 3, the Void. I think one of my favorite things that Marvel's done is create the Sentry. Essentially a Superman-like character, but like, in my opinion, way cooler. A large part of what makes him so much better is that while he is essentially a godlike superhero who inspired all the other heroes who exist, he also has a dark persona called the Void. The Void went on a rampage that took the lives of around 1 million people and almost destroyed Manhattan. And so, Sentry made the decision with other heroes like Reed Richards and Doctor Strange to cause the entire world to forget about his existence. Now, in New Avengers, which started in 2004/2005, the Sentry comes back to the world, and through a series of events, the Void also returns. Full rosters of the Avengers, X-Men, and the Fantastic Four all went to take on the Void, and they couldn't do a damn thing. Only the Sentry himself could really subdue the Void, and it, in classic supervillain fashion, vowed to come back. And it totally did. In the Siege event, Norman Osborn decided to attack Asgard, and he used the Sentry to do this. Problem is that the Sentry ended up unleashing the Void, and it totally obliterated Asgard completely, taking out Loki in the process. This did actually branch off into a what-if story where the Void was never stopped and destroyed every superhero on Earth, and then went off into the universe to basically do the same thing. The Void exists as long as the Sentry exists, and the Sentry keeps on coming back to life every time he somehow gets defeated. The Sentry is basically a god, and the Void is this god's devil. Number 2, Zom. Just because Zom looks like your uncle's hairy big toe does not mean that you should underestimate him. Zom is one of the most powerful and scary extra-dimensional entities in existence, being described as worse than a dozen Umars. Umar is the sister of Dormammu, for anyone who wanted to know. Now, speaking of Dormammu, it took all of his power plus the help of the cosmic being Eternity just to restrain Zom with the magical chain called the Links of Living Bondage and with an object called the Crown of Blindness. And with these tools, these massively powerful beings managed to trap Zom in a jar. Now, I know it sounds silly, I'm downplaying it. It was actually an amphora, and Zom was trapped in a quote world beyond worlds in a quote time beyond all time. That was just his origin story though. Eons into the future, in Strange Tales number 156 from 1967, Doctor Strange unleashed Zom in a fight against Umar, but that was a mistake because now Strange had no way of taking on Zom, like at all. He had to turn to the Living Tribunal, the personification of multiversal law, the representative for the One Above All, and the highest authority in the multiverse, just to banish Zom. Zom wasn't really released again, but Strange did channel Zom's power in a fight against Worldbreaker Hulk when that event happened, and using that power he did indeed pummel the hell out of the Hulk until Strange started to lose control and pass out. Lastly, in Doctor Strange's final recent moments, he was taken down by the Hood, who held an assault on the Sanctum Sanctorum with like 50 other villains, and Strange managed to rise again, but channeling the power of Zom, which he used to take out everyone. Then Strange left the mortal plane.
Number 1. The One Below All. So, the One Above All is the ruler of the multiverse and the creator of all life in it. Although he is the source of love and good, he also has an evil form known as the One Below All, who is the personification of hatred and destruction. The ruler of the lowest point of reality, the below place, it is able to manifest itself on Earth through the mutagenic form of gamma radiation. This means that when Bruce Banner was caught in the gamma bomb, he was infused with this dark entity's power. The One Below All wants to become the only remaining thing in the multiverse and to destroy everything else. As he is incapable of having his own personality without a host, it waited until Hulk's father, Brian Banner, died to merge with him and take on his personality. The leader eventually managed to absorb Brian's soul in hopes of learning more about the One Below All, but was possessed by it instead. He is a terrifying foe who can never really be killed, and who, as a dark aspect of the One Above All, is technically also the creator of everything he's trying to destroy. If you want more information on the One Below All, check out our video attempting to explain the Immortal Hulk, where he is the puppet master pulling all the strings against the Green Goliath.
Coming in at number 10 today, it's Monarch. Born into the esteemed Braddock family, James Jamie Braddock Jr. didn't manifest his reality warping abilities until adulthood. His extraordinary powers hinge on the manipulation of quantum strings, granting him dominion over the very fabric of reality. Operating under the moniker Monarch, he wields a range of abilities, from teleportation to nightmarish bodily distortions, and even the ability to sow utter chaos throughout the cosmos. As his powers elevated, Jamie Braddock evolved into one of Earth's most perilous and erratic mutants. Ultimately though, Monarch met his demise at the hands of his own siblings, Captain Britain and Psylocke, who sought out to safeguard the multiverse from the dangerous power that he wielded. But despite the danger, the Five on Krakoa successfully resurrected him, and he harnessed his capabilities to ascend as the ruler of Avalon, solidifying his status as a true monarch within the realm of Otherworld.
If you're enjoying this video so far, you can support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Top 10 Nerd, and ringing the notification bell. Adam and I really appreciate it. At number 9 is Vulcan. Vulcan, also known as Gabriel Summers, emerges from the tangled web of mutant abilities as a formidable figure overshadowing even his renowned brothers, Scott and Alex. His tumultuous upbringing, marked by neglect and isolation, set the stage for his unparalleled powers. Unlike Scott's optic blast or Alex's energy conversion, Gabriel possesses the astounding gift of energy manipulation and absorption, seemingly boundless in its potential. Now, what sets Vulcan apart is his ability to voraciously absorb vast quantities of raw energy and retain it within himself like a cosmic battery. This stored energy can be wielded at his discretion or redirected as needed, making him a walking powerhouse. In the annals of mutant classification, Vulcan has transcended traditional boundaries, earning the elusive title of Beyond Mutant Level from discerning minds like Rachel Summers. The Summers bloodline, it seems, has birthed not one, but two extraordinary mutants, with Rachel herself as a testament to the family's unparalleled genetic legacy.
Number 8, Mr. M. Mr. M, also known as Absalom Mercator, is one of Marvel Comics' most powerful mutants. His mutant ability grants him control over matter on a molecular level, allowing him to manipulate and reshape materials, elements, and even living organisms with a mere thought. But unlike other matter manipulators, he can only manipulate already existing matter. This differentiates him as being a matter manipulator, but not a reality manipulator. Don't think that makes him a pushover though, not by a long shot. He has used his ability abilities to repair machinery, become intangible, heal injuries of both himself and others, remove or augment superhuman qualities, and even create and evolve lesser life forms. He can also manipulate energy, which has allowed him to generate lightning, fire, explosions, and the ability to create force fields. He basically became a savior figure for a group of mutants before being taken out, but even then he seemed to revive himself by becoming a bunch of butterflies, and he was revealed to be alive still later, charged with protecting the Siege Perilous in a part of Otherworld which he now controls. Number 7. Mephisto. Within the Marvel Universe, Mephisto is, for all intents and purposes, the devil. He isn't actually. Technically, he is a demonic hell lord who rules over his own hell-like dimension and enjoys stealing people's souls by tricking them, and he does that by pretending he is the actual devil, playing on people's fears, so basically, he's the devil. While Mephisto is within his dimension, which he calls hell, he is immortal, omniscient, and impossible to destroy. It's only when he ventures into other realms that he can be defeated, but doing so just kind of returns him back to his own dimension. He has been a major player in the Marvel Universe since his creation and has been either a key or supporting player for many major events. He was the Snake in the old Adam and Eve story. He was directly responsible for the creation of Ghost Rider. He's infamously erased the history of Peter Parker and Mary Jane's marriage in order to save Aunt May's life. I mean, he even popped up a hotel out of the ground in Las Vegas that manipulated the citizens and let him take their souls. He has been defeated and outmaneuvered multiple times, but he has never permanently been stopped. Number 6. The Phoenix Force. Now, it's important to say the Phoenix Force is not a villain, technically. It is a cosmic entity representing all life in the Omniverse. The Phoenix Force will exist as long as there is, was, or will be life. If the Phoenix Force were to be destroyed, if that were even possible, all life would follow after it, as well as the ability for life to have begun in the first place. The Phoenix Force is just a force of nature, but it has been used as a darker force of power in the past. For example, when it inhabited Jean Grey during the Dark Phoenix saga. It was at this time the entity was a villain, using Jean's insane levels of psychic power, which it then amplified to godlike levels. With this entity inhabiting her body, Jean and the Phoenix destroyed an entire solar system and attacked her fellow X-Men. Jean had to actually bring her own end just to stop what was happening, and when the Phoenix regained its memories of all the evil it had done, it brought Jean back to life to help make things a little better. And that's not the only time. There was the whole X-Men versus Avengers thing, and there was that time that Thane, Thanos' son, had the Phoenix Force. Almost every time the power of the Phoenix Force comes up, it usually corrupts its bearer and makes like a big stink. Like a huge stink. Big old fart. Number 5. Dormammu. Most fans of Doctor Strange know Dormammu. This being composed of pure magic energy rules the dark dimension and spends most of his time taking over other realities as he finds them. He is essentially immortal and capable of wielding godly power over magic, the dead, souls, and pretty much anything, really. When he is in our reality, he can be thwarted and returned to his own, usually by the Sorcerer Supreme, but within the dark dimension, he reigns supreme and cannot be taken down like at all. Using his vast magical abilities and the influence of his power, he is constantly trying to invade our reality, and even when he is banished back or he is stopped, he always comes back eventually, and he has been doing this for millennia. Number 4. The Beyonder. The Beyonder is a singular entity with no duplicate versions of himself in other universes, similar to the Phoenix Force. And also a lot like the Phoenix Force, Beyonder is basically like a baby in that he is a younger member of a race called the Beyonders that are a near omnipotent alien race from a dimension outside of the multiverse. He is himself basically a whole universe. It's really hard to explain, but as he observes Earth and the Marvel Universe and the various races, he gets a little curious, and the Beyonder decides to study and analyze life and humanity, good and evil and conflict, and to that purpose he pits Earth's mightiest heroes and villains against each other in the Secret Wars. Now, he did this by destroying an entire system of planets and creating Battleworld from the remains and from parts of Earth, so that's one level of power right there. Beyonder's powers surpass that of Eternity and the Living Tribunal, but that has been retconned recently. And he is capable of manipulating reality to his will, being able to pretty much do whatever he wants and then grant himself any power he wants. It was actually a huge treat though last year in the Defenders Beyond story when we learned that the Beyonder and his race were actually still in existence, and he was now an adult existing with the rest of the adult Beyonders outside of the multiverse and being all levels of wildly, insanely powerful. There's a lot I skimmed over here to make it less confusing, but you should just go read all the Secret Wars if you want to see how crazy these beings actually are. Number 3, Cyttorak. Cyttorak, also known as the Destroyer, is an incredibly powerful extra-dimensional being who was worshipped as a god and as a demon by the primitive humans of Earth until he was banished back to the Crimson Cosmos, which is where he comes from. Now, as the Destroyer, Cyttorak's main goal is to just cause destruction and raise destructive power. Simple as that. To do this though, from the Crimson Cosmos, and also to win a wager with 8 other godlike deities like himself, he created the Crimson Gem of Cyttorak, which allows him to select a person to be his avatar, enhancing them to become the indestructible and immortal Juggernaut, which kinda gives us 2 different versions of Unstoppable all wrapped up into one package. You're welcome. Merry Christmas. That's for you. As the Juggernaut is essentially a physically unstoppable force of kinetic energy, unless you're the Hulk, I guess, then you can stop him. I don't know why. Anyways, Cyttorak is such a powerful and unstoppable godlike entity that you will even hear magic users invoking his name to cast some of their strongest spells. For example, the Crimson Bands of Cyttorak. Number 2, the Chaos King. While he is relatively obscure, he is nothing to scoff at. Amatsu Mikobashi, first appearing in Thor Blood Oath number 6 in 2006, was mistaken as the Japanese god of chaos and evil, but in actuality, he was an aspect of the cosmic being Oblivion. Now, Mikobashi ruled and thrived over the earth when it was nothing more than a formless void of primordial darkness. And as such, his goal now is to put an end to creation and bring about a new age of chaos and void and darkness. He is a primordial being who was imprisoned in Yomi, which is the Shinto underworld, which is where he remained for centuries, accruing an army of Oni, which is Shinma demons, and other monsters. Now, during the events of Ares, god of war, Chaos King attacks Olympus after he defeated and controlled the Japanese pantheon of gods, and after the fall of Asgard during Ragnarok. This is what kind of kickstarts his mission in Chaos War, where he slays the Egyptian gods, Celtic gods, Shi'ar gods, gods of Zen law. He takes out Nightmare in the dream dimension, destroys Mephisto, and casts Mistress Death out of hell, making her literally run away. And he releases the souls of the damned. He did all that. He has the power to defeat eternity and is practically unfazed by attacks from the likes of Zeus. God Hercules, Galactus, Silver Surfer, and Thor together could not defeat Chaos King. To win, Hercules had to literally punch him into a portal to an endless void of nothingness, and this was after he destroyed 98.76% of the entire universe. That's a lot. Number 1, Chthon. Chthon is one of the most powerful demons to ever exist. Even though he predates anything like this, of all the devil-like demons out there, including Mephisto, Chthon is the closest thing to the actual devil. He and his Ngari actually ruled the earth before the angel Lucifer attacked them, and that was before Lucifer ever rebelled against heaven and became the actual devil. Chthon himself is responsible for all the witches, werewolves, vampires, and other dark creatures, as well as being the master of the most powerful form of magic, chaos magic, which is the same stuff used by the Scarlet Witch. The Scarlet Witch has altered all of reality with just a fraction of that magic, so yeah, it's a lot. His opposite, Oshter, is one of the 3 beings that make up the Vishanti, and they stand in direct opposition to Chthon specifically, creating the Book of Vishanti in response to Chthon's Darkhold. Other demons and dark sorcerers, including Dormammu and Mephisto, call on Chthon's name to cast some of their strongest spells, and the Sorcerer Supreme, Doctor Strange, was almost corrupted and permanently taken out by Chthon's mere presence alone. He is extremely hard to bring down, and even if you manage to do so, it's only a matter of time until he comes back.
At number 10 is Ultron. Ultron, the AI antagonist from the Avengers, delves into the intriguing realm of human-robot interaction. Created by Tony Stark in the MCU, but was actually the mindchild of Hank Pym in the original comics, its prime directive is achieving world peace, and surmises that the only way that would be possible is to eliminate humanity. Ultron's self-improving nature grants it exponential growth in power and intellect. This villain proves relentless thanks to its ability to adapt, infiltrate networks, and upgrade itself like a superhero Skynet. Its adamantium exoskeleton renders it nearly indestructible, and it can transfer its consciousness across different robodies. Robodies? I thought that was clever. Ultron embodies the fear of technology gone awry, posing a formidable challenge to Earth's mightiest heroes. Can they triumph over an enemy that evolves faster than they can strategize? If you're enjoying the video so far, you can support this channel by pressing like, subscribing to the channel, and ringing that notification notification bell. At number 9 is Baron Zemo. Baron Zemo is a cold and calculated strategist in the Marvel Universe. First appearing in the comics back in '64, this mastermind completely lacked superhuman abilities, relying instead on heightened intellect and resourcefulness. Zemo single-handedly orchestrated the Avengers' downfall from the shadows by exploiting their weaknesses and triggering internal conflicts. His Machiavellian approach showcases that physical power isn't the sole path to supremacy. With a tragic backstory and penchant for manipulation, Zemo remains an enduring antagonist. Whether it's through psychological warfare or intricate schemes, he serves as a reminder that sometimes the most formidable adversaries come not from superhuman might, but instead from within the human psyche. At number 8 is Kang the Conqueror. Hailing from the pages of Marvel Comics, Kang is a time-traveling, history-manipulating enigma. His real name is, well, that's a bit tricky. You see, he has a whole bunch of identities due to his time-traveling shenanigans across different eras. Or, dimension hopping, depending on how you want to look at it. In the MCU, Marvel is treating alternate timelines and alternate dimensions like they're the same thing, so we'll just have to deal with it. But I digress. Off the top of my head, he goes by either Nathaniel Richards, Rama Tut, Scarlet Centurion, Immortus, Kid Immortus, Iron Lad, Mr. Griffin, a Doctor Doom, and of course, Kang the Conqueror, thus making him probably one of the most convoluted characters in comic book history, as there are innumerable iterations of the character spanning countless eons. For example, there are versions of Nathaniel who become Rama Tut before becoming Kang, others who after becoming Kang become Rama Tut again, only to then become either Immortus or Scarlet Centurion, and or back to Kang. Some flip between Rama Tut and Kang before becoming Mr. Griffin, while other Kangs don't become Kang at all and instead become Iron Lad. Yeah, it's really messy. And as you can already guess, what makes Kang truly interesting is his mastery over time, hopping around like a temporal tourist gone mad. With advanced future tech and extreme intellect, partly on account that he's the descendant of Mr. Fantastic, he's a challenge that is as much a puzzle as he is a powerhouse. His various incarnations, alternate selves, and mind-bending plots make him a true headache for our beloved Avengers. Wrapping your head around Kang's complexities might require a time machine of your own.
Number 7. Darth Malgus. Darth Malgus was originally known by his given name Veridon. As Veridon, he was raised in a part of space that was loyal to the Empire, and when his Force sensitivity first manifested, when he killed a servant, he was sent to the Sith Academy for further training, which honestly makes a lot of sense. If the Force kind of seems to be strong with you and then you kill someone, definitely time for the Sith Academy. He first appeared in the Deceived trailer for the video game Star Wars: The Old Republic. Following his training, he became a Sith warrior, serving in the Imperial Army. As an apprentice to Darth Vindican, he took the name of Darth Malgus for himself. After suffering a dramatic defeat and injury on Alderaan, he was forced to permanently wear a respirator. Initially, his attempt to invade Alderaan had actually been successful, with him actually launching a pretty efficient surprise attack. But afterwards, the Republic managed to push back the Sith in response with their own successful counterattacks, and that's where he got pretty badly injured. Number 6. Emperor Darth Revan. Darth Revan is an interesting one. Not many knew of the character's relevance as a Sith Lord, due to the Sith history only being known, of course, to Sith cultists throughout the galaxy. As such, Revan's name was mainly unknown, lost to the sands of time. Revan, however, would have a Stormtrooper Legion named after them because, fun fact, Stormtrooper Legions are apparently typically named after Sith Lords, ancient Sith Lords. In truth, Revan was a former Jedi Knight who left the Order and ended up becoming the Dark Lord of the Sith. They formed a Sith Empire, but eventually became an amnesiac who was retrained and indoctrinated into the Jedi Order, later actually used to fight against the very Sith Empire they had once built. Revan is actually the character that you play as in the game Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic, and can be customized to look however you prefer them to look, with you also choosing their gender. In canon, however, Revan was established as male, with the light side ending of the game being established in lore as the canon ending, so just so you know that. Number 5. Darth Talon. While I feel like female Sith Lords are weirdly rare, Talon is a great one who really makes up for the lack of quantity of Sith ladies with just straight up quality. Talon herself is visually striking, covered head to toe in Sith tattoos. Each of these tattoos were earned through ritual combat. She was the apprentice initially of Sith Lord Darth Ryan, but would betray him at the command of Dark Lord of the Sith Emperor Darth Krayt, separating his head from his body with her lightsaber, as, a lot of Sith Lords love to do that. Talon would become one of 2 of Krait's most loyal followers and apprentices, and when he was eventually defeated, she actually ended up going into hiding, continuing to operate in the shadows, striving to serve the needs and accomplish the goals of the One Sith, which is sometimes also known as the New Sith Order. Darth Talon was created by John Ostrander and Jan Duursema, and was first introduced in the Dark Horse comic series Star Wars Legacy. Number 4. Ajunta Pall. Ajunta Pall was the first Dark Lord of the Sith, the very first one. Although being the first ruler of the First Order of Siths, he did not have a Sith name that he was known by, at least not one that I was able to find, instead being simply known as just Ajunta Pall or Master Pall to his followers. As indicated by his title, Pall was once a Jedi and Jedi Master, a member of the Jedi Order. He began to study alchemy during his time as a Jedi and would discover how to create and shape life. Despite this impressive discovery, the Jedi Order did not celebrate Pall, but instead feared him and his newfound power, deeming it as part of the dark side of the Force and condemning him. For this, he was kicked out of the Jedi Order, who then attempted to basically erase the knowledge of his discoveries in order to prevent anyone else from tampering with this newfound power. Frustrated at having been judged and rejected, Master Pall and his followers declared war on the Order, beginning the period known in history as the 100-Year Darkness. Pall comes from the expanded universe and I believe first appeared in the Dark Horse Star Wars comics. Number 3. Darth Bane. Darth Bane, while perhaps not as well known in terms of Sith and Sith Lords, is actually quite an important Sith in terms of their history. He is the creator of the Rule of Two. The Rule of Two maintains that at all times there can only be 2 Sith, a master and their apprentice. Bane actually created the Rule of Two to protect the Sith after being the lone survivor of the Jedi-Sith War. Bane believed that the Sith's competitive nature and their focus on destroying one another had ultimately weakened them to the point that, he was the last one. So he created the Rule of Two to help them better, somewhat, work together, thereby preserving them and their beliefs. The Jedi-Sith War happened about 1,000 years prior to the events of the Clone Wars and resulted in almost all of the Sith being wiped out by the Jedi Order, save for Bane. The Rule of Two might seem like a small thing considering that it doesn't seem to, greatly increase the Sith's numbers, only going from 1 Sith at the top to like 2 of them, but it actually was successful in prolonging their survival thousands of years into the future. After the death of Darth Bane, who was killed supposedly by his own apprentice, the Jedi believed they had succeeded in wiping out all of the Sith, and a 1,000-year era of peace was ushered in. However, his apprentice survived, becoming the new master. With the Jedi left unsuspecting, this actually allowed the Sith to plot in the shadows, spreading their influence throughout the galaxy and bolstering their power in secret. Darth Bane first appeared in Star Wars: The Clone Wars. Number 2. Darth Zana. Darth Zana is relatively unknown even within the world of Star Wars itself, but still serves a super important role in the continuation and evolution of the Sith. Zana was the apprentice of Darth Bane. She was trained to carry on the rules and teachings of Bane, including the self-preserving Rule of Two. We don't know much about her, or even really how she killed her master, but it's believed that she fought and killed Bane in a duel. Zana has only been mentioned a few select times in Star Wars media, and is not only a mysterious figure to Star Wars fans, but also to characters within the world, as accurate historical records were, not really kept in regards to her life and her story. She was actually first mentioned in the novel Star Wars Episode 1: The Phantom Menace by Terry Brooks, based off the film, of course, of the same name. Here, Darth Zana was first wrongfully referred to using the pronoun him, and this would actually later be corrected in other media, where instead it would be established that Zana used the pronouns of she, her. Now we know Zana probably lady. Be cool to actually hear more about Darth Zana. I would be interested. Number 1. Emperor Darth Vitiate. Darth Vitiate is quite the Sith. While to me Darth Vitiate is not as well known, if you go hard when it comes to Star Wars, there is a chance that this is a Sith Lord you might recognize thanks to his extensive history and his impressive feats. Truly, this is a Sith Lord that earns the unstoppable part of this title. Darth Vitiate is the son of the Sith Lord Drameth. Even growing up, he showed a great penchant for power and influence, conquering his own village and people by the age of 10 on planet Madrius. Hearing of this, Lord Drameth came to see see for himself what chaos his son had wrought and was killed by his son. Unafraid and filled with brazen confidence, Tenebrae, as he was known at the time, would end up making his way to Dark Lord of the Sith, Marco Ragnos, where he would prove himself and be rewarded with the title of Sith Lord, becoming known as Lord Vitiate. He would also go on not just to become a Sith Lord, but also take for himself the title of Emperor. Vitiate would set out with his forces to once more find and reclaim the Sith homeworld of Dromund Kaas, ushering in the new dawn for his Sith Empire. Seeking complete immortality, Vitiate also sought to gain more power and in essence, basically become a god, becoming probably one of the most ambitious Sith Lords we have ever known in Sith history. Vitiate and his empire were first alluded to in the video game Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic #2, The Sith Lords.